Hi, and good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to another day at COP23 here at the CGIAR booth. My name is Samuel Stacey, I'm the Communications Manager at CGIAR, and today I'm with Luna Bharati, who's the Principal Researcher at IWMI, the International Water Management Institute, and she is a hydrologist working on water resources management. Welcome, Luna. Welcome here. Good to have you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe you can give us a quick introduction on what it means of what you're doing and where you're coming from.
Yeah. I'm actually based here in Bonn. I work for IWMI, as was just mentioned, but I'm hosted by the Center for Development Research, which is a research institute under the University of Bonn. And I'm a hydrologist by training, but I've been working on water management issues not just from a biophysical perspective, but also social perspective, economic perspective, institutions, from community level water management to large river basins.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, your work has primarily focused recently in Nepal and South Asia. If you can just give us a brief, history or kind of, recent things that are happening with regards to climate change impacts and what's kind of being experienced there.
Yeah, thank you. So I started working on climate change impacts probably back since 2008. So it's been over 10 years. And when we first started assessing the impact of climate change on water, water availability, water use, etc., the science wasn't there yet. The various circulation models, they were very divergent, so it wasn't very easy to actually define what the impacts were. But still, we needed to do work, under climate change. So at that time, one of the things we highlighted is that it's uncertain, and this was, the whole management scenario then shifts because we then need to increase reliability of water resources because it's uncertain what the future is bringing. Now it's becoming a little bit clearer, although there's, it's still, we'll have to wait till for the next 50 years to know exactly how it pans out. But, things like variability will increase. There's going to be, frequency and duration of flood events and droughts. These extreme events might decrease. These sorts of things are becoming more apparent, also from people's perceptions, as well as the data from the climate change predictions.
Yeah. And this is really what it's all about. You mentioned people there, and I think that the work we're doing, the work you're doing, really is centered on helping people adapt. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the worst, the people who are worst able to adapt and what kind of things they're going through, and perhaps what we're doing or what you're doing to solve that.
Yeah. So one of the things, when I first started working on assessing climate change impacts in Nepal, that's before I moved to Germany, I was head of the Nepal program, so basically focusing on South Asia. And there, the people were highlighting the issue of glaciers. However, when we did some analysis and studies, we figured out that glaciers are an important issue, melting of glaciers, but it's actually the monsoon that's the main hydrological driver in South Asia. So the changes in monsoon is something that's that is more crucial and will also affect and impact more people. And so what we've also been doing is doing vulnerability assessments to then target adaptation projects or strategies. So we did a vulnerability assessment for the whole country of Nepal and identified areas which are vulnerable, not just from a biophysical perspective, just looking at monsoon data and trends, etc., but also from a social perspective. What are the livelihood bases of these people living in mountain communities, and how dependent are they on changes in weather, and also their socioeconomic status? For example, if they completely dependent on rain-fed agriculture, then of course they're more vulnerable to changing rainfall patterns. However, if they have a diversified income, for instance, they're a little bit less vulnerable. And that's also why I feel we shouldn't lose sight of development. You know, development in some areas, funding from development has been maybe shifted away and put into climate change adaptation. But I feel, you know, development and moving up the development trajectory is also adaptation, and because stronger economies, people with diversified incomes, are better to cope and adapt.
Absolutely, and I know particularly in India, the last few years, you know, with the monsoons has been very unpredictable. It's been longer, has started later. So maybe just to finish off, just on the kind of work that you're doing, you're dealing with a lot of nature-based solutions. Is that correct? And they help mitigate some of these impacts. How, you know, what does that mean, nature-based solutions, and how do they help?
Yeah, so nature-based solutions, it's a way to integrate climate change adaptation into landscape management. And the main point is to make these adaptation strategies more sustainable. And so I have two projects which I'm managing in Nepal, where we're trying to look and understand springs, because springs are a major source of water in these mountain watersheds, and then also to figure out how to manage these springs. And here we're taking the whole landscape and watershed and then trying to understand, you know, how the spring flows, the groundwater surface water interactions, etc. And so
very interesting. So we're winding down now at COP23. We've got one more day left. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experience here, maybe some of the things you've seen, you've heard, and some of the people you've met.
Yeah, it's been a very positive experience. There's just been very powerful, lots going on. Almost a bit overwhelming, but it's been very good for me to not just, get a chance to present the work that I'm doing, but also to listen to other, what others are doing, other institutions, etc. However, this morning, as I was waiting for this interview, I happened to walk by a booth. It was from the indigenous community, and then there were community something, it was called Indigenous Peoples Forum or something, and there was a group from Mali singing West African music. And I just sat there for probably half an hour just listening and soaking in, because as a scientist, you tend to get lost in data and numbers and all these hard facts, but we need to remind ourselves that climate change adaptation, the work we're doing, it's for vulnerable communities and for vulnerable people. So this is who we're working for.
Exactly. That's a great note to finish on. Well, thank you very much, Luna. It's been great having you here and to learn some of the things you've been doing, working on, and some of the experience you've had this week. So thank you all for watching. Great to have you here watching us live at COP23 from the CGIAR booth. One more day here left from us, so stay tuned for more here on Facebook.